provide is true and accurate?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Jorde.
Good morning. Would you please state your name?
Debra Wheeler.
And I understand you're nervous, and I just want to let you know everyone has survived thus far. So, Ms. Wheeler, are you a owner of property in Page County, Iowa, that Summit Carbon Solutions is targeting for its proposed hazardous pipeline?
Yes, I own the land with my brother and sister.
Very good. And as a part of this process, ma'am, have you caused to be filed what is known as pre-filed written testimony, as well as some attachments and exhibits?
Yes.
And if we were to go through the same questions posed in your pre-filed written testimony here today, would the answers you provided there be substantially similar to what you would tell us today?
Yes.
Do you have any material updates or corrections that you believe are necessary for the board to know at this time?
Since the July 24th filing of my pre-file testimony, I've heard a lot of information about the water usage that has been added to my pre-file testimony, and I just wanted to make sure that it's in there.
Okay. And
as an exhibit.
Thank you. And when you say added, I think that you have caused to be filed a couple hearing exhibits, and it would be your request that those would be offered into evidence. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. With that, we would offer exhibits 318 through 333, as well as 627 and 638.
No objection. With no objection, the board will admit, give it the way due.
Thank you. And ma'am, with that, I'm going to pass you to other folks for questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Taylor?
Thank you. Ma'am, I'm Wally Taylor. I represent the Sierra Club.
Good morning.
Could staff bring up the KMZ file, please? In order to clarify your written testimony, I just want to ask you, first of all, does that red area appear to be your property?
Those are the two parcels that are impacted. We own all 6 parcels to the highway and down. But 2 parcels are impacted by the proposed route.
Okay.
They're in red.
So you own that whole section there?
6 parcels, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And there are some structures just southeast of your property on the north side of that road.
Yes.
What are those structures?
The one to the far southeast is the homestead that my grandparents bought in 1945. That's where my father lived in his high school years. And it's very special to us. That's where we spent all our Sunday evenings playing cards with all the grandkids. That's where we got our family values. It's very special. There's now another family that lives there, and they were not aware that the information about the pipeline going through when they purchased that land. They have a 7-month-old baby. The home right beside that, a friend of my father's, Carl, approached my father and asked if he could buy that piece of land to build his home because it's a fantastic location. That is a hard surface road going west to east. It's called 130th Street or J14, and it also has Highway 59 going north and south. That's the main road that gets you out of Shenandoah to anywhere you want to go. So it's an ideal location. He knocked on my dad's door and asked if he could buy a little piece of property, and my dad sold that little piece of property to him. He and his wife have passed away, and now that property is owned by his son.
Okay. So are both of those homesteads occupied?
Yes.
Okay. And then it looks like to the east of the red part, which is still on your property, it looks like there are some more structures. What are those?
That's not our land.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood what you said initially, I guess.
Maybe I said the wrong direction. I did say east. I'm sorry. Going west of the homestead in the southeast corner was the property that was purchased by my dad's friend.
Okay. So that to that, the structures east of your property, what are those?
East of our property
Right there.
is not our land.
Right, but
I think it's just a barn and
Okay.
some trees.
all right, so it's not a residence?
It's Avenue A, but I'm not for sure.
Okay. So it's not a residence?
Objection, Your Honor.
State the objection.
Lack of foundation. The witness has said repeatedly it's not her land. She's not aware of what those are. She answered what she thought those were, and so it's also asked and answered.
Mr. Taylor?
I'm just following up. I just asked her if she knew of anybody who lived there.
Okay.
I'm uncertain.
Okay. Sounds like we can move on.
How and when did you first learn of this pipeline project?
We got a letter in the mail, I think it was August of 2021, giving us information about this. Right away, I was very concerned and tried to find information about it. There was little information about. There were informational meetings provided. One was October 14th at 12 o'clock in Shenandoah. I'm working, so that's not an okay time at 12 o'clock. So I found an earlier meeting, October 6th in Oakland. I attended that meeting. It was held in a gymnasium where the people that attended were sitting in the bleachers, and it wasn't really conducive to the age of the crowd attending. It was a big video presentation. There was some questioning, but at that time, questioning was allowed, but at that time we really didn't know enough about it to ask questions. So I was hoping it would be more of a presentation giving us information and not just a video. So after that, I didn't feel like I really had much information, still wasn't able to gather much. So then I attended another meeting that was exactly the same video again in Red Oak on October 14th.
Okay. Following that the informational meeting, did you talk with Summit land agents or representatives?
They began calling my brother and I at work. We asked multiple times for them to please not call us at work. My brother works with power lines, and he has to answer his phone because he's on call, and he would often have hot wires in his hand, and so he numerously times said, "You cannot call me. I have to answer my phone. You know, you're endangering me." I would be called during my work, and we would constantly say, "Please stop calling us at work."
Yeah.
We did have land agents visit us, and as I was going through trying to update some of my notes, I found one of the visits on January of 2022 where JR, our first land agent, and Tom Bray came to my house. And I just thought it was weird because I had made some notes about it. And I had asked something about I did not want the hazardous pipeline on our land. And Tom Bray responded, and I know this is what he said because I actually put it in quotation marks. He says, "You are misinformed." And then in quotation marks again, he said, "It's not a hazardous pipeline."
Okay.
And then in quotation marks again, he said, "CO2 is what we exhale." And I was very intimidated because I was home by myself, and the information I was learning was that it was hazardous, and he was telling me it was not.
Summit's witnesses have said that the Summit representatives have worked in good faith with landowners regarding easement terms and routing issues. Was that your experience?
No. Every day we had contact with our land agent, and we've had 4 of them. My brother would say, "We don't want it. If we have to have it, please move it as close to 59 as possible to run north and south so that it does not interfere with our land as much or impact our renter farming that land." I said the same thing. Every single time we met them, we would say, "Please move this along 59 to try to keep our farm more intact." It would also put it away from those 2 homes, one of them having a 7-month-old baby. They don't have a voice. They don't own the land, so they don't get to come and talk in front of you all. We feel like we are their voice.
So what was the response when you visited with the land agents?
My last land agent would always start the conversation, "It's too late to change. I'm sorry your first landowners were not helpful." He would always apologize for how we were treated by the first landowners and not trying to accommodate the proposed route that would help our farm stay intact.
Okay. So is it fair to say that the Summit representatives made no effort to accommodate you on an alternative route?
From day one, they would say no. I asked Richard Love at a Shenandoah meeting if that could be moved along the Highway 59, and he did a little quick math on his laptop and said that would cost us $1 million. And I wish I would have been thinking, because I would have responded, "It's your million or our million. If you keep it where it is, you are impacting $2.7 million.
Did you talk with the land agents, and did they give you any response regarding any concerns you had about safety?
Yes, as you know, the conversation we had about hazardous, when they denied that it was even a hazardous pipeline. Other information about plume studies, modeling, all that has not been released to us. They are not discussing, they're not forthcoming to, make us aware of a possible things that could happen to us as landowners and as renters and as our neighborhood and our community we're trying to protect. I might add, when you asked about contact with landowners, in the contact list that everyone's talking about, on May 9th of 22 at 2:50, Christina Battle met with me in person. However, I was at work. On Thursday, May 26th of 22 at 12:50, Christina Battle met with me again in person, but I was at work. On Monday, June 6th at 9:42, Christina Battle met with me in person. I have never met Christina Battle. I could not tell you what she looks like. It also, on Thursday, January 27th at 22 at 8:48 a.m., JR called me by phone. I would have been at work. On Tuesday, January 25th at 2022, at 9:04, JR called me again. I would have been at work. I could go through the list, and those contacts, they're not accurate is what I should say. They also double. We have 2 parcels, so all those contacts are listed for the first parcel, and then they go through the second parcel, so it looks like we have a lot.
Yeah. So is it your experience that Summit has made no good faith effort to work with you on easement terms or routing?
On routing, no. They will not move it. On what was it, easement terms?
Easement terms.
We have added, Summit has added some items to our Exhibit C list, but when we got the Exhibit H paperwork, I believe in July, all of the Exhibit C items have been removed. So we are back to a 24-inch pipeline, even though in Exhibit C it says that it's an 8-inch pipeline. And at one point it was a 6-inch, but now it's moved to an 8-inch. That all those clarifications, the feet under, depth of the pipe, all of that has been removed, and we're back to Exhibit H.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Ms. Coles?
Good morning, Ms. Wheeler.
Good morning.
Would you please bring up the KMZ map? Can you move it a little to the east or left, please? Okay. You indicated that you owned 6 parcels, but only 2 parcels were affected. Do you own the section to the west of there, or where are the other 4 parcels?
The road running north and south is Highway 59. We own the parcels to the east. There are 6 parcels. and then the last two in red is where our property ends. So the highway to the red, there's 6 parcels.
Can you use the pointer? Because
Oh, I'm
to
sorry.
me that's
I'm
west.
sorry. I can do that.
Thank
Let's
you.
see. Come on. Oh, there it is. Okay. So, does it not stay on? You have to hold it. Okay. This is Highway 59 running north and south. We own all this. And for the note taker, I'm just circling these 6 parcels.
Okay, so you do own the section to the west then, as I'm looking at this.
We own to the highway, yes.
Okay.
We own all this.
Do you have any existing easements on your property?
Yes, we do. In 1979, we had a rural water easement come through, and it's right inside of our fence line going east and west on the southern part of our property. We are very supportive of that easement because, as you know, rural water is something that our family needs, these neighbors need. It takes the water on west to my aunt. It's good for the community. In 1975, the Department of Transportation approached my grandfather and grandmother, and they wanted an easement to build this road, 130th or J14. My grandpa was very upset because he was going to lose his hard-earned acres, but we also did some investigating, and 48 years ago, he was paid $2,997.68. But since that time, for the last 48 years, our family has not been able to farm 5 acres, and you can kind of see down here, I'm sorry, I'm flashing you, down here on the southern part, we're not able to farm that. So not only for 5 years have we lost 5 acres, we haven't been able to cash rent. Our renter has lost out on 5 acres. But again, that is an easement that we support. It has increased the value of this whole community because, as I said, this Highway 59 is how you get in and out of Shenandoah. This hard surface road here gets you into Essex. It's a great cause for everyone in that community. It also has improved the value of our land because, as I said, people are approaching us because you are surrounded by 2 hard surface divided highways. It's a very ideal location to continue selling easements, or the hope of my brother, sister, and I that we talk about often is our retirement home, acreages. There's a lot of use that we could do.
So this pipeline is affecting your future plans for the property?
Exactly.
Where would you have built, or have you decided yet, your homes for retirement?
This is the homestead. We're actually all hoping, my brother, sister, and I, are hoping that we very much value this young family with the 7-month-old baby is living there. We're very excited they get to experience that like my father and all the grandkids did. If that should ever sell, we're going to grab it. But to the west of this acreage, all along this road would be perfect spots for more development. But the pipeline is going right through there. Would I want to do that? No. It's impacting my brother, sister, and I's dreams, our children's dreams of how we can continue to use the land the way we want to use it.
Thank you on this section, because now I understand your conversation pertaining to it's cutting your farm in half.
It acts. Our renter is going to be forced to. I had a conversation with Sunday. I said, "How are you going to farm this?" And he said, "It's going to be a lot of back and forth, back and forth. He's not going to be able to follow the contour of the land." Summit has told us that it impacts 5 terraces. When we count, we think it's more like 7 terraces that it's busting through, and you know the impacts when you bust through a terrace. There are 3 tiling projects. As soon as my dad got the land, when my grandparents passed away in 2010, he began tiling projects. There's a tiling project in 91, 93, 2002, and 2003.
So you have spent a lot of money with tiling and terracing, and you have great concern about how this will impact erosion in the future, for example?
Exactly. And our next future plan, we have a little, can't quite see it, a little waterway through here. Our next plan, our next tiling plan is tiling right through in here. There's some tiling now, but we want to extend it to make this even better for our renter. The renter is my cousin. My dad, his dream was to support young farmers, because even though this was his homestead when he graduated from high school and went to the service for 2 years, when he came back, there wasn't enough land for him to farm. So he set out on his own. He knows what it's like as a young farmer to have to rent land and build up your equipment and, all the cost involved as a young person. So prior to his passing, for 5 years, he did rent to a very young farmer, got him going. That young farmer inherited some other land, got him on his way, and then right before his passing, he signed a contract with my cousin to rent that land. My cousin grew up right around this farm, so he was on this farm every day. It's such an emotional tie for him as it is for us. He walked beans on this farm, and now since 2010, he's been farming it. We kept the same renter, but it's my dad's passion to help young farmers get started, and he's helped too. That is what my sister, brother, and I talk about often. We want to continue to help young farmers and give them a spot to farm. When my cousin's no longer able to farm this, then we would go and pursue another young farmer to give him that opportunity.
So do you have great concern about your cousin operating equipment?
Yes.
And working around the pipeline?
Yes. My brother, sister, and I have talked a lot about what are we going to do. We've talked with him too. Sometimes I call him Winter, sometimes I call him cousin, but we've talked about putting it into CRP. We don't want anybody to be in danger. We've talked about not leasing that section of the land, of the pipeline, but that totally adds so much time to how he'll farm the land. It's going to add more gas. It's going to add more time. How is it feasible for him? He has shared with us that right now he does not want to farm over that part of the pipeline. He is my age. He's raised his own 3 children, and now he's gone down and adopted 2 school-age children. How can we put him in danger now? But for him not to farm that little piece, it impacts his income. It impacts our rental income. We're going to have to lessen the rent.
So you're willing to take your land out of production because of the risk and hazards of operating a pipeline going through that area?
We have discussed that. The risk is too much.
And that would probably create a huge financial burden for your family.
Yes, and to pass this on to our children, it's a ticking time bomb. How would they ever survive if something happened? This used to be an asset, and it's turned into a liability. Our children, there's 5 between the 3 of us, they are young enough that, we thought it was an asset we're passing on, and they would be legally, financially responsible if something happened. How do we pass that risk on to our kids? And you can tell how devoted we are.
Question, have you attempted to get liability insurance?
Yes, talked to my insurance person so many times that he just kind of laughs. But the clause being is that, sure, they'll insure me, but in case of an incident, then who would be determined at fault? And we all know that means hiring a lawyer, time off work, stress involved, trying to prove who did what, waiting for a settlement, hiring a lawyer, waiting for a settlement. You might be many, many years down the road trying to get answers to that or trying to get clarification for that.
Thank you. No further questions.
Ms. Hike?
Hello, Ms. Wheeler. I'm Chris Hike. I'm a landowner as well. Just a couple questions. What's the closest ethanol plant from your land?
8 miles. We are 8 miles from Shenandoah, and Green Plains is the ethanol plant in Shenandoah. It is hooked on to that singular connection plant that comes from Iowa County, crosses 7 counties, 140 miles, upsetting land and people's lives and their livelihood and their dreams to go down for one singular connection to that plant. And that plant is doing phenomenal. It is expanding right now. It has projects. It's doing very, very well.
That's a highly concern of yours,
It's very, yes. Mm-hmm. Why are we going all the way down and they're endangering more land that's profitable and productive and people's homes, as well as livestock?
Sure. And are you concerned of the water usage at the ethanol plant?
Yes, that is something that's come up, but part of the paperwork is in my pre-file testimony. Shenandoah, on August 24th, issued a voluntary water restriction. Since since September of 2022, they have been in a moderate to severe drought since September of 22. So they are voluntarily asking people to conserve water now. The town is becoming a buzz because now it's hitting their hearts. They need to do what they can to reserve their water source. And as you say, hey, how does that impact you 8 miles north? It does. That's my community. That's our restaurants. If they have to limit their hours or even shut down, we have hospitals there. We have nursing homes there. We have a swimming pool. We have schools. In my community, 30 miles away, at one point we had to truck in bottled water at the high school. We had to put porta potties outside of the high school to conserve water for flushing. I don't want my community of Shenandoah, to be involved of losing their water supply. Water is a public service. We have to keep it safe for everyone, and it cannot be taken to a private company for their use. And as I understand, the water is being used to cool down the equipment that's taking the CO2 out of the ethanol plant. And then that brings on probably the next thing we're going to be about is what are you going to do with that contaminated water? Where does that go? What stream does that go into? There's just so many questions that we just keep hearing more and more things that are not being transparent. And then we learn about those things, and it's just such a dangerous, unproven project from a company that hasn't built a pipeline yet. And it's a brand new company that hasn't proven themselves.
Has this taken an emotional toll on you?
I think you can tell, yes.
I do. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear.
Thanks.
Mr. Dublinski.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Wheeler. Just a couple of quick follow-up questions. You were talking about the contact list and the number of contacts that shows. Are you aware that list shows both contacts and attempts?
On my list it says phone, in-person, phone, and email, and letters.
Right, and what I'm asking is, are you aware that includes attempts that were made, not necessarily just successful contacts?
It's not denoted on the paperwork.
So you're not aware?
That's not denoted, so no, I would not know that when they say they phoned me, that really means they didn't phone me. Well, but they just tried.
They tried.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking a little bit about what you referred to as Exhibit C, and just to be clear, you and Summit agents had discussed your concerns, and they had provided language in Exhibit C to try and address some of those. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Exhibit C is an exhibit to the individual voluntary easement that they were negotiating with you, correct?
Yes.
And you said that those terms were not on the language in the Exhibit H that was filed. Do you understand that the terms in Exhibit H are a uniform set of terms for the board to approve for all eminent domain parcels along the project?
Yes.
Okay, and so that's different than the individually negotiated terms in a voluntary easement, right?
It just appears that if they were willing to negotiate things that would make it better for me as a landowner, they would continue those same conditions into the Exhibit H list.
You understand that that is a uniform set of terms that the board will approve if they choose to do so on a project-wide basis for that particular purpose, not relevant to your specific situation.
So in the end, will my Exhibit C items be honored if it should go to eminent domain? I can't ask a question, sorry.
Correct. Sorry about that. See, Mr. Jorde.
Ask me again? I'm not sure what you're asking.
Oh, no, I'm just clarifying, and I think you already said it, that you understand that the Exhibit H terms are a sort of generic set of terms that Summit is asking the board to approve on a project-wide basis, so it wouldn't necessarily pick up all the individual situations like an Exhibit C would.
But that would be what I would be under contract for forever, is what is in Exhibit H. I would then be a 24-inch pipe versus an 8. So whoever buys that land after Summit is done in a couple of years, they can go ahead and tear my land up again and put a 24th inch, because eminent domain would be that I had agreed with that.
And those sorts of terms were being worked out between you and Summit in your Exhibit C, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no.
Quick question. We've heard a lot of conversations up here.
Sorry.
No, it's just magical voices coming through. I know. Heard a lot of conversations about water and water usage.
Yes.
Do you know, does the ethanol process, does that use water?
I believe what I've tried to read about, because this has only come about for the last 2 weeks, is that the water is used to cool down the equipment that gets the carbon dioxide out of the plant.
Oh, and my apologies. So I'm just talking ethanol. I'm just talking ethanol production in general.
Oh, ask me again.
Yeah, so does ethanol, to make ethanol at these ethanol plants, do they use water?
I don't know.
Okay. That's all I was asking. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Sorry.
Mr. Jorde, for redirect.
Thank you. Where to start? So Mr. Dublinski was just having a back and forth with you on
Sorry.
Exhibit H, which are the restrictions they want to put. They want the board to agree to put on every of the 800 plus Exhibit H parcels. And then you were talking about some Exhibit C, but do you understand if eminent domain is granted and they take you to court, the court doesn't renegotiate a single term. Do you understand that?
That's what I was trying to explain.
Okay.
Not as well as you just did, but my attempt.
So the Exhibit C, which were maybe, better terms in a terrible situation, is your point, make those available in this uniform set of terms. Don't just, here they are, here they aren't type of deal. Is that what you're getting at?
Exactly.
Okay. And so if they were sincere about actually doing something that would maybe be a little bit better than the standard, you would say, why isn't that showing up in the Exhibit H?
Yes.
Okay. And also, in this talking with Summit, there's been a bit of a narrative throughout the last couple of years that I prevent landowners from talking to Summit. Did I ever prevent you from talking to them if you wanted to?
No.
Okay. And you're free to do that if you wanted to, right?
Yes.
All right.
I have talked to them in person, emailed them. We met with them on the land.
Now, can we pull up Exhibit 557, please? And while we're doing that, I want to. You said something about the ethanol plant, and I believe that's the ethanol plant. You said the Shenandoah, approximately 8 miles from you. Is that right?
Yes, 8 miles.
Okay. And you said something to the effect that they're doing fine, they're expanding, and is the point of that to say the sky isn't falling in Shenandoah? They're doing fine without a hazardous pipeline. Is that what you're getting at?
That's exactly right.
And have you seen any documentation from Shenandoah that says, without this, I don't know, without this, we're going to go bankrupt or close our doors?
No, and also there's ethanol plants along the way that my renter can use, and he said he will use the other ethanol plants that do not support eminent domain, and that is Atlantic, Council Bluffs, and Corning. They have not signed on.
So basically, you and your tenant have made an economic financial decision, as many others have. If this is somehow approved, that you will not be providing corn to the participating ethanol plants, correct?
That is correct, because they support eminent domain.
That's right. And then if the corn that they think they're going to keep getting, these ethanol plants, no longer is going there, you understand the entire premise of this project is completely destroyed.
Yes.
Okay. Now we're looking at Exhibit 557, and I believe you estimated there to be approximately 140 miles from Ida County, where
Fremont.
to down to Fremont and the Shenandoah plant. Is that right?
The miles are from MapQuest, so it's probably more because it's probably from border to border, but
roughly 140 miles. And your point there was it that, what are we doing even considering eminent domain for 140 miles to get to one plant that's doing just fine?
Exactly.
Okay. And I take it your opinion would be that there's, in the balancing of public convenience and necessity, that it's pretty difficult to justify that 140 plus miles of eminent domain and forever destruction and restrictions for a single business in Fremont County.
Exactly, especially when we take on all the risk at a financial loss.
Thank you. If we could pull up the KMZ, please. Okay, now I don't think we got the distance. You said there was a home. Can we zoom in on those buildings in the southeast? Thank you very much.
Right here.
And is that the home with the 7-month-old baby?
This is the home.
Okay.
Where my father grew up and my parents purchased in 1994. This is the home, all this area, of the friend of my father that approached him because it was such a good location to build an acreage.
Okay, so in terms of an occupied residence, the one closest to the proposed route is presently occupied?
Yes.
Okay, and the other one just immediately to the east is also occupied?
Yes, with the baby.
Okay, so can we please get a distance from the nearest home to the proposed hazardous pipeline route? So let's say 787 feet. Okay.
Summit sent me a map that says 466 feet. I assume they're going from the property line,
right,
perhaps, to the pipeline.
And are you aware that as long as you're following the setbacks for residential structures, that a home could be built much closer to the proposed route if someone ever wanted to?
That would be a risk they would be willing to take to be that close.
I asked that in a poor way. Forget this pipeline exists.
Okay.
You're aware that legally the owner of that property or someone in the future could construct a structure on the western edge of that acreage.
Objection, Your Honor.
State the objection.
A, it's not in response to anything in cross, and second, it calls for a legal conclusion.
Well,
Mr. Jorde.
it certainly doesn't call for a legal conclusion. The question was foundational, are you aware? And she hasn't said yes or no to that, so.
And which portion of the cross did that relate to?
Well, it all relates to financial impact, and I believe she testified about the potential of other development. I thought that's what she said. There could be other development along that area just north of that road. So I'm picking up on that.
So you may answer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, that would be our dream. My brother, sister, and I have talked about continuing an acreage there, or several, or trying to buy this house if it should go for sale. We want our grandchildren to experience the farm life like we did. We want them walking beans and drinking from the hydrant.
But that dream, to connect the dots, you're saying you and your family would not make that economic development, which would therefore be a negative impact to you and not only the county due to loss of tax revenue and loss of development.
Yes.
We talked a little bit about water. As far as you know, is water used in those residences? Do people use water?
They're profiting from that easement that we hold on our land for rural water. And the easement that was sold, this one is rural water. This one has a very good well. The well is right there at the end of the sidewalk. They also use rural water.
Okay. And your complaint about, or concern about the water, these hundreds of millions of gallons that Summit would want to use, is in addition to any water that's currently being used, the status quo of the Shenandoah ethanol plant.
Yes, Jimmy Powell testified that it would take 20 to 120 gallons of water per minute, and someone did the math, and it would be 478 million gallons of water projected to be used in 1 year for the plants. Some plants are forthcoming to say how many gallons of water per year, like 55 million. Another one reported 27.6 million. I have not found that information for Shenandoah of how much water they're proposing that they will need, but it certainly impacts us.
And what's the road name or number of the one just that we're looking at here, which is in the southern boundary of your property?
It's called 130th
Okay.
or J14th. It's a hard surface divided highway.
And then can we zoom out and take me to 59th Street, ma'am? Is that the road all the way to the west there?
Right there.
Okay.
Yes, north and south.
So if for some reason this was approved, a pipeline was approved, you would say that the route, the least worst route would be along 59th Street as close as possible.
Yes. Also, when they gave us our CSR2 ratings, where this pipeline is, it is 95 and 87 productability. Over here, we have some 33 and 59 for the CSR2 rating. This is our most productive piece right here. And that's where that pipeline's going, through the terraces and our tiling. Over here is not as productive. Overall, the whole farm is 80.6.
And then you talked a little bit about the contact sheet. On the contact sheet that you were referencing, does it have the word attempted on there that you've seen?
Oh, that's what we talked about. I did not see attempted.
Okay. And I mean, like, it doesn't reference these are attempts. It says contact sheet, right?
That's what I was trying to explain, yes.
Okay. And then you stated that Summit representative told you it's not hazardous and CO2 is what we exhale, and you found out that that's both a lie and misrepresentation.
Yes, and I was very intimidated when he was telling me those things, because it was two men at my front door and I was home alone, and they had very gruff voices. I was shaken.
Well, you understand Summit's directive is to get these easements signed at any cost. Do you know that?
But that's not what Iowans do.
Well, I'm going to leave that right there. Do you agree that if the interview, so to speak, for this potential hazardous pipeline has been the last 2 years of lies and misrepresentations, that this application should absolutely be denied?
Absolutely be denied.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. I don't have any more questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. You're excused. Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to take a very short 15-minute break and come back and have, looks like one more, correct?
Yes, we've got Joan Center-Livre, who will be virtual.
Thank you.
Thanks.